where you've been, what you've done, and what you have done to you. You are the part of the journey that God knew you.
We have our guest speaker, Tina Konkin here. Konkin. Sorry, I'm tongue-tied this morning. She's awesome, guys, and I want you to give her a big round of applause and open up your ears and hearts to receive what she has to share for us. Welcome.
Wow, it's a privilege to be here. And I'm excited to be here. I'm excited to be in Maui. I've been here since, I don't know when, I think Wednesday, and then I went over Tuesday, and then I went over to Kauai, and we were there at a couple churches there, and it's just been awesome. I mean, it is a mission field, and I've just been called to this mission field, and I feel very privileged. I'm kidding. Maui, I get to be in Maui. But I try to sell that to my friends in California and Canada. I tell them, look, somebody's got to do it. Might as well be me. I mean, I'll sacrifice and go to Maui. No, I absolutely love this place. And today I want to honor my husband who went to be with the Lord on December 25th, Christmas Day, 2013. So I'm coming up 3 years because I believe I'm standing here because of that man's vision. And because of that man, my husband, my friend, the father of my children, married 32 years together. And then he said, Lord, that's enough. I got to come home now. I'm kidding. He committed till death do us part. But it's because of him that I'm here. It's because of the vision that he saw even after his passing. He said, Lord, I pray that I have imparted enough in my children, in my wife, in the legacy, that we will never stop healing the brokenhearted. And I caught something from that. I caught something from legacy. I caught something about, even as he went to be with the Lord, they gave him 4 months to live when he was diagnosed, and he lived 4 healthy years. And him and God sat down one day, unbeknown to me. I actually probed, like, okay, if they're right, I believe in God's healing. I've seen God's healing, and all of that. But at the same time, I said, Lord, if we're to prepare for this, then Ron, you must have a bucket list. Now I'm thinking an earthly bucket list, And he looked at me and he said, honey, when did you stop living the bucket list? Like, we are living in the vision and dream God has called us to. There's nothing I would add to that. And I said, if there was one selfish thing you could add to it. And he says, maybe a trip to Europe with our kids. That was it. That's all he required, or all he desired. But everything else he required of God. He said, let me leave a legacy so that I shall live and not die, to continue to live in this world through the vision, through the legacy of healing relationships, one broken heart at a time. That is our passion, and I couldn't understand how he could ask that of God if he wasn't here. I couldn't understand how I could carry on in a relationship workshops and relationship work and counseling couples and people in trouble in relationships without having a husband. But God knew better. And God knew he needed to prepare my heart, and he has. But he has given me people around me that my husband trained, and people that help in our 4-day programs, and some of the programs even that your pastors have attended. He gave me people to be alongside, and one of those people is Margaret Aubin, and she's actually been with us for over 20 years. She started in the ministry with us when we started back in 1995. And she came through with her husband back then and has been with us ever since. She got born again then, and she just gave her life to serving to this. And today she continues to work with us, and so she quite often travels with me, and I'm thankful for her. And I'm thankful for the support she's been to me and how she gets me out of bed quite often. But I just want to share a little bit before I start about the legacy that my husband really left behind. One of the legacies, and the biggest legacy that he taught us in the last 4 years of his life was, and now I made the t-shirts, was the I get to legacy. I get to. See, life became for him in his last 4 years not about I have to do anything. I get to serve Jesus. I get to love my wife. I get to heal the brokenhearted. I don't have to. I could sit at home. And then he'd bring it so far as those things that maybe went wrong, you know. Some of those things that, you know, you take the wrong turn on the highway, right? And you were due somewhere. And then he'd look over and he goes, you know what, honey, we get to see this part of the country. When we took this wrong turn, and I tell you, if you take a wrong turn in LA and Orange County, it's a big deal before you can get back on the right road. But he says, we would have never seen this, and he'd point at things, and I'm going, really? You know, and then one day we were fighting because his garage was his nothing box. If you've never heard of what a nothing box is, it's the place men go when they don't want you there, right? And so to him, his nothing box was his garage, and that's where he tinkered, and you know, that's where he played with things, and he had tools that for nothing. You know, he used to be a contractor, but when we moved to California, for some reason, I don't know why he brought the tools, because he never did another thing, but he thought you never know, you know. And so he still had his garage full of tools, and he did things out there, and I left him alone. But this one day, I was spring cleaning, and I was on a roll. It was like I was going to empty every closet. I was going to go through everything. I was going to just make sure that, you know, everything we hadn't worn was going to get put away and taken and given away. And I was going through my daughter's closet and making sure everything that didn't fit was getting given away and all that stuff. And I was feeling so good. And so, you know, as I filled the bag from one closet, I'd take it down to the garage. And he said nothing. And then the second bag, and then the third bag. I got to about the fourth or fifth bag, and he goes, what are you doing? And I said, well, honey, I am on a roll. I am spring cleaning. I'm nearly down to the last bag. And he said, and why would you think that your garbage can come into the garage and just be placed here? And I went, well, what's wrong with that? And you know, he kind of took my joy out of cleaning. And I got a little bit upset, but I didn't respond. I shut the door behind me really loud, so he knew I wasn't pleased. And I walked back, and I was about to go upstairs, but now the joy of just getting done wasn't there. Ladies, you know what I'm talking about, right? Yeah. And all of a sudden, I thought, I'll get you. I go back, stomping in there, and I said, by the way, Mr. Konkin, you get to clean this garage. And he looked at me, stepped back, and I said, because you have a garage. You know how many people don't have a garage to clean? And he looked and he started to laugh. And he said, honey, where would you like these bags to go? And I said, thank you. But you know, it's a funny story, but it's the truth. We started realizing that, you know, he'd look at me, he goes, you know, he goes, we get to fight too. And he said, even that counted all joy. It's better than stuffing it. And I'm Italian and I know how to fight. But we also learned something. And that is that if a fight lasts longer than 5 minutes, it's old stuff. It's unresolved from last time that maybe you didn't resolve. So you get to fight for 5 minutes. Ladies, take it all. Take the full 5 minutes and do speed talking. All right? But it's true. You can't go through life thinking you're not going to have challenges, you're not going to have disagreements. But it's the old stuff that separates relationships. It's stuff that doesn't get resolved from yesterday and the day before and last week. And as you're going to see today in my message, maybe things that you haven't resolved from when you were yay high. That's the stuff that really brings separation in marriage. And so I went ahead and I took, you said you wanted one? Take that. But no, but you're going to go to the back and get a lady's size, okay? But that's for you. See, she was bold. She asked for what she wanted, and she got it. There you go. There you go. And then we also stamped the I Get You necklaces. Just a reminder. I've got a couple of necklaces behind there. And everything we sell back there is for a purpose. First of all, it's for scholarships for couples that can't afford our 4-day programs. And so anything we sell goes right back into scholarships, into our nonprofit. But I sell these necklaces that say I Get To, and it actually supports a couple of organizations. One organization is the foundation that my children have in downtown Vancouver for the homeless and those that are hard to house. So these were stamped. I Get To, and there's a lifeline on them because you get to be a lifeline to someone every day. I get to be a lifeline. And they stamp the I Get To on these rings. It gives jobs to those that were once homeless. And they come in, and every one of those that come in for family night and for games night, they've created a place in downtown Vancouver where they can come and have a place. And those are these. I didn't hear anybody speak up. All right, right there and right there. You choose the color and then give her the other one right there in the colored dress. Okay, right there. And the last thing I have here today is our, and these I don't have enough to give away. Sorry, you'll have to come to conference where there'll be more. But it's our set. It's our set of teachings or DVDs, 8 DVDs in here on love, sex, and money. But really on the things that I'm going to talk about today is in here, about the baggage that we carry, the wounds that we carry that we haven't resolved. And so we have a book that was written by my husband and I that was one of the things on his list. So that's back there too. And then on the other side is dear friends of ours that talk about kingdom finances. And some of the things that we are not honing into in the Word and what God wants us to do with that. So that's back there, including, it's on the DVDs also, the teaching. And then there's a CD back there, an audio CD, that is not a CD on forgiveness. It's not teaching. It's actually a meditation on forgiveness. So that's back there. And today, just for you guys, I'm selling it for $59 for all 3. Normally the DVDs alone go for $69, okay? So that's all back there today. I wanted to just get that out of the way. The conference that we're doing, you're going to get a little taste today on October 14th and 15th. Conference that we're doing here on Maui. It's about 10, 12 churches getting together for a relationship revolution. And what you saw there on the video is partial what we're going to do there. It's going to be a Friday night, Saturday. The tickets, because you're a church and we know there's going to be more than 10 people from this church going, you get the group rate of $37. If you're writing a check, you're going to write it out to your own church and they're going to take care of it. All right? If you're giving by credit card, however your church handles it, they're going to handle your registrations and then just hand them to us when we're going to be here. It's $37, and really that covers $37 per person, and a lot of that is for the brunch that is included on Saturday. It's going to be at the Hyatt Regency, and I understand that the Hyatt Regency I don't think they have any rooms left, and the rooms they do have left I think are around $300. But there is, tell me, Denise, Kanapali. There we go. Kanapali Beach Hotel is offering rooms for you guys that are locals at $119 a night. And it's right next to the Hyatt there. It's beachfront, right? So if you are a couple and you need a night getaway, that is perfect. Just save up for it. Do what you have to do. Don't go to Starbucks. Don't eat out lunch and get your hotel night, okay? It'll be perfect. There will be babysitting. I don't know what the charge for babysitting is, but I think it's going to be very low. And the babysitting for children is going to be at a local church close by to the Hyatt, right? So all that information your pastors will have, and we have the sign up there today. So today I really want to speak about, I guess I don't really have anywhere to put these, do I? To lift them up a bit? Do you want to hold them for me? That'd be awesome. Thank you, Denise. I want you to imagine that this jar here is your heart, okay? There you go. Yes, perfect. Thank you. Thank you. Thanks, Denise. This jar here represents your heart. And when God created Adam and Eve, he meant for our heart to be clean. He meant us to have all the goodness, but he also meant for us to be created for his pleasure and his image with the power of decision. And so what happened after, as you know the story well, we fell, we began to, yes, sin. But today I'm going to refer to it as the hardness of the heart. Why? Because I'm referring to it as in relationships. If you think about when Jesus was here on earth teaching, the Pharisees would often come and try to trip him up. And they came one day and they asked him the question, what do you say about the law of Moses where he allowed divorce? And Jesus answered and he said, yes, the law did allow divorce. Moses did. It is written in the law that a man could put away his wife or divorce his wife. But then Jesus carried on. He didn't get tripped up by it. Because Jesus carried on and he said, it is because of the hardness of the heart that Moses allowed divorce. And he said, but it was not so at the beginning. And so as my husband and I looked at this, because you see, we had a real crossroad in our marriage. In our marriage, my husband asked me to never stop telling the story because we've seen hundreds of people with brokenheartedness receive our message of healing and get hope from it. But in our marriage, at about the 14th, 15th year, my husband was unfaithful. And we decided what I'm going to show you today. I keep getting distracted at that view. I am so sorry. I've got to stop looking out there. It is absolutely beautiful out there. God's creation. He's in heaven, but I get to see some beautiful paradise right here. Okay. I'm looking at you and paying attention to you. Focus. Tina, focus. I've got that. I don't have ADD, but sometimes I feel like I do. Like I focus. But where was I? Right. So we decided that we wanted to restore. We decided that we wanted our lives to count for something. We were already in ministry when it happened. But the first morning after the reveal, after my husband shared what had happened and when he told me what had happened, that next morning when I woke up and I walked into the bathroom and I saw the mirror and I looked in the mirror and I saw my eyes puffed up. And I saw betrayal in my eyes. I felt a feeling that I was used to feeling. I felt like a victim. I felt like once again I'd been abandoned. Once again, I got that rejection feeling, which was a huge, huge rock in my life. See, this hardness of heart came from the time I was a very little girl. And I heard that I should have never been born. And I heard that my mom didn't want me. That's when the root of rejection. See, these are roots in our heart that harden our hearts. But they're also a way for us to protect our heart. Because you see, after rejection came anger. And that morning as I looked in the mirror, I was feeling the rocks of betrayal again, the rocks of abandonment, the rocks of rejection, the hardness of heart that wanted to build up. And all of a sudden, just like God knows how to do it, I heard his voice. And as I looked in the mirror, as ugly as it looked that day, because see, God will use your ugly. God will use your wounds. God will use those things that we really try to cover up. But if we don't, he will give us a story. Because we will overcome the enemy by the blood of the Lamb and the power of our testimony, the power of our story. Is he using your story today, or are you still hiding your story because of shame, because of guilt, because of betrayal, because of shame? See, I hid my story because I was the victim. But that day was a pivotal point in my life where God says, you are not a victim. As a matter of fact, and this is where I felt, God, have you forsaken me too? Are you really asking me this question? In my lowest point, in my most fearful time, you're asking me to ask myself, what part did I play in this downfall? Because he said, I made you one. So if he falls, you have fallen. And I had to look at the hardness of my heart. I had to look at the things that I'd brought into the marriage. And when we began to heal, and when we began to see that we could identify these rocks, and we began to take these rocks out, I realized that years and years and years before I was married, I made a vow that I would never nurture a man, because men hurt you, men betrayed you, men left. And I would never nurture a man again. In other words, what does that mean? That means if my husband was one of those husbands that lived to make his family happy. He did everything for me. He made coffee first thing in the morning. He made it for me too. And he'd bring it, if I was still in my bedroom, he'd bring it to where I was. I never made coffee in the morning, but we worked from home in ministry. And midway through the day, I would go up and I'd pour myself a cup of coffee and I'd come back to the office. And he'd say, you didn't get me a cup. And I didn't know why. I couldn't answer it. No, honey, I didn't. He goes, don't worry. I'll go up and get my own. I thought, yeah, well, I didn't think there was anything wrong with that. But you see, that was the vow. And see, vows are made by I will never or I will always. Right? Those are vows. And the Bible says that if you make a vow, you'd better keep it. So what happens is vows go deep in your spirit. So I didn't know why I wasn't getting him a coffee. I wasn't being mean. I wasn't being rude. But the vow said I wasn't allowed to. And that rock, that vow in here, controlled me. And that's what God showed me when he said, what part did you play? And he took me to my heart. And I said, show it to me, God. What part did I play? He said, remember when you didn't take him coffee? Remember when he was speaking and it was somebody else that brought him the water if he was coughing? He started showing me a movie of every time I didn't just do the nurture. And guess what his love language was? Touch. Nurture. Be aware of his needs. I was none of those things. None of it. But I would go through all that we went through to have the marriage we had for 20 years after that. Because I would have never believed you could bond to someone like we did. I would have never believed you could really be one of heart, one of spirit, one of mind. And serving him became a joy. And many of us in our relationships will say, well, if he doesn't know or she doesn't know that, I like it when she scratches my back. Or I like it when she brings me a cup of coffee. Or I like it when she gives me words of affirmation. Or I like it when he brings me a flower for absolutely no reason. Depending, there are love languages. For me, bringing me gifts, I used to tell my children, don't bring me gifts if it doesn't have a card with it. I wanted the words. And if it's going to be between the card and the gift, get me the card with your handwriting. Don't pick one that says nice things. That was my love language. And so it's important, first of all, that we know each other. But think about what you're giving to each other in relationships, even your children. What does it mean? But these rocks here get in the way because most of the time, this is what we're giving each other. We're giving each other rejection. Or we're treating each other with anger or resentment or offense. And I'm not just talking about marriage here. I'm talking about relationships. We get hurt. And so this morning, I want you to begin to think about maybe some of the hardness of the heart that is between you and people you love and people you do life with. Because until you don't resolve this, the enemy has rights. You know that? Do you know that the enemy is very strategic? He has a plan for your life. Always has had. And the only way he can get to you is through the hardness of your heart. Because then he can make you get a divorce. Doesn't look like it's going to work out. He can make you, leave a relationship. He can make fathers and sons be against each other. That's the devil having rights. Because maybe you have an unforgiveness rock. On October 14th and 15th, we hope to help you uncover where the roots are. We don't do anger management. There's nothing wrong with anger management. But the word management means you're still not getting to the root. We want to get to the roots of the hardness of the rock, the hardness of the heart. And I think about what we do, and my husband and I decided that, as we were doing our 4-day programs, we were very, very aware that we were seeing a lot of miracles, and we were seeing a lot of healing in relationships, and not just marriage, but in people's hearts, because our programs are not just for married people. They're for singles, they're for divorcees, they're for people who do relationship. We all do relationship, all right? And we started seeing the miracles and the freedom and some of the things you saw in the video. And we said, if we could just break this down, take what we went through and give it, I don't want to call it a formula, but we called it the R3 factor. And we put it in 3 simple steps of healing. Personally and in relationships. And the first one is R1. And R1 is what I call the reveal. See, we had to start revealing one with another these rocks. The hardness of heart. I had to see what God showed me, that I had shut down my heart. My husband never had my whole heart until after the infidelity. And so sometimes we have walls of protection because we've been hurt. And that's the reveal. And you cannot change or heal what you don't reveal. And I want to just bring a story into this. And this is about revealing yesterday. Revealing things in your life from yesterday. Revealing the things in your life that are holding you back from having healthy relationships. And I want to take you to a story in John 4. It talks about the Samaritan woman that comes to the well. Let me give you a little bit of history on her, because she had a lot of rocks. She didn't come to the well when all the other women came in the morning, but she came at noon in the heat of the day where no one went. She was sure to come to Jacob's well when no one was there. The reason for that is because she had a reputation. And I'm sure the women in town spoke ill of her. So-and-so? Yeah, she's on number 6. Can you believe it? Like, really? And so she learned way back, maybe even after her first husband, that there wasn't a place for her at the well to gather where women gathered. So she didn't go. She went at a high noon. And in the reveal part of her story, watch what happens. She sees a man at the well. So history again tells us men didn't go draw water. So there was no business for men to be at the well. You know how I know that? Because Jesus was thirsty. They went for food into town, his disciples, and he sat at the well, but he had nothing to draw water with. But he was thirsty. So he sees the woman coming, and she looks over there, and now let me tell you something about the woman, okay? Imagine for a minute, she's a Samaritan woman. She's had 5 husbands, okay? And the one she's with right now is not her husband, so she's with number 6, right? She can't be an ugly duckling. Think about it for a minute. She must have had some kind of charisma to get 6 men. Like 6, not 1. Most of us have trouble getting 1. Come on, single ladies that are still waiting for the 1. She had 6. So she must have had something, all that. Now she sees a man at the well. She doesn't know who he is. She goes, what the heck is he doing at the well? And she's thinking, man, you know, I come here in the heat of the day, and now there's a man there. And so she starts heading. She goes, well, I got to get my water. I'm just going to ignore him, pretend he's not there. And all of a sudden, the man that's sitting at the well says, woman, get me a drink. Can you imagine as a woman, we're out there somewhere and some strange man comes up to us, get me a drink. Now we're thinking she's being used to being hit on. This man's hitting on her. Not cool. So she looks at him, right, and she goes, do you know who I am? Because here's another rule. Men aren't allowed to talk to women without their husbands present. That's another rule. But then he breaks another rule. Jesus was a rule breaker. Did you know that? If he can touch and heal one heart, he'll break all the rules. Because he just broke the rule of speaking to a woman, number 1. He broke the rule of the Jew speaking to a Samaritan. That wasn't allowed either. And he says, do you know, she knew enough to know he was Jewish, because she said, do you know that I'm a Samaritan and you're a Jew? And you're talking to me. And he responds and he says, if you knew who I was, you'd know that today I could give you water where you'll never thirst. Now, this isn't in the scripture, this part that I'm about to say, but I can just imagine in her head thinking, man, if he could give me water and I'll never be thirsty again, that means I don't need to come to this well anymore. But instead, she looks at him, she goes, what kind of water are you going to give me anyway? You don't have a cup, and you don't have a rope to draw from. So she's still not hearing and hasn't had the revelation of who he is. But here comes the reveal. Jesus says to her, go get your husband. And what does she respond with? The truth. The truth. She said, I have no husband. She tells him the truth. Reveal is about the truth. And he goes, you've responded with the truth, he said. He was commending her at this point. He said, you're right. You don't have a husband. You've had 5 husbands. And the one you're living with now is not your husband. Well, can you imagine if that was your life and somebody called it out? You're like, whoa. But at that moment, when the reveal happened, she was ready for the rewrite. He was about to rewrite her story. because she was willing. She didn't put up her defenses, but you don't know. That man abused me, and the next one abused me, and that one was this, and that one was that, and I didn't deserve that. She didn't go there. She took the reveal, and suddenly she said, if this man has the power to rewrite my story, I want to know about this water. And the rewrite was that day. Today, she got to rewrite the story of the hardness of their heart. Of every man that had used and abused her, she got to rewrite the story. Every one of them that had maybe left her. Every woman that had looked down on her. Here was a Jewish man paying attention to a Samaritan. Remember how they felt about the Samaritans? The Samaritans would say, at least give us the crumbs. Even dogs, that's how they looked at themselves. Even dogs get crumbs. That's how the Jews looked at the Samaritans. She had no problems knowing her identity. But then her identity as a Samaritan, then a woman that been married 5 times. Imagine the shame that woman carried. The shame. That day he said, let me rewrite your story. Let me rewrite your story. See, Jesus wants to rewrite every single rock we carry. Every bit of shame. Every bit of abuse, the addiction. He's not looking at it and saying dogs deserve a crumb. He's saying, I've got the whole kingdom. I've got everything you need to heal. But it comes. See, I wonder if the story would have been different if she hadn't told the truth. See, you can't change or heal what you don't reveal. And I feel in God's house, and some of you may be sitting here, but I mean globally, God's house, we've been taught to cover up, not reveal. We've been taught to cover up because rejection comes if we show our rocks. One preacher that I just heard said, it's like the church is a witness protection program. We don't tell where we came from or who we are or what our name was. We're not in a witness protection program. Because you see, that day, the very story she would hide, the very rocks she covered up, the very reason she never went to the well, even with other Samaritan women, by the way, she didn't go there. You know why? Because of the rejection. But that day that Jesus rewrote her story, she ran from the well all the way back to her city, and she went out and spoke out loud. She was the first woman evangelist that ever lived. Don't tell me women can't preach. She preached that day, and many came to Jesus to find out, because she went into the city and she said, I met a man that told me all about me and about living water. But she wasn't scared of her testimony anymore. She wasn't ashamed of her testimony. She said, I met a man that told me all about my life, that I had 5 husbands. He knew that I was living with the one I'm with. He told me I was okay. And that my life meant something. Study that. See how many people. She was the first evangelist to the Samaritans. We're not dogs. We are fully accepted by the one that gives living water. And the R3 that my husband and I discovered, and this was his favorite because this is what we got to build on, and that was to renew. Renew is about tomorrow. Rewriting today so our tomorrow is brand new. Renew is not a renovation. Renew is not patching things up. Renew is making it better than it was before. Our life was better than it was before. We ministered better than we ever did. We grew a marriage ministry and a relationship seminar better than it ever was before. My husband had a vision that one day we would touch Hollywood We lived in Vancouver, not in California. I'm now residing in California. But 25 years before that, in 1995, my husband had a vision that we would touch Hollywood and we would touch pastors. He got to see part of that vision fulfilled, but nothing like it is today. I was just on this island speaking to over 100 pastors from around the world, training for 5 hours on marriage and relationships. And as I looked at at all those pastors from all over the world, in my heart I looked up and I said, you see the vision, don't you? Because in Hebrews 11, it says that they had a vision, and it mentions all the men of faith. They had a vision, like Abraham and Moses, and it lists all of them, but they would not see the fulfillment, but they would see it from another city, as in a cloud of witnesses. And I believe my husband today is in that cloud of witnesses looking here and saying, there's a relationship in this room. There's a broken heart in this room. There's a broken relationship. There's a woman in this room that has her story that needs to rewrite and have Jesus rewrite it on the tablets of your heart. There are people in this room that need to take care of the hardness of the heart so that you can wholly be whole and serve God. But that came out of a vision that I laughed at. But today I stand here and I have been a part of Hollywood. I have been on Gene Simmons' Family Jewels, and the reason they're married today is because they came through one of our intensives. And we were able, you know how many, now people, I'm one of them. When they uncovered that it was Gene Simmons that I would be doing this couples retreat for, I went, oh dear Jesus, I'm going to hell. Because that's what I heard as a 16-year-old, that if we went to the KISS conference, or the KISS concert, we would be going to hell. That was our beginning of Hollywood right there. Do you know how many people have come through our program because they saw us on Gene Simmons' Family Jewels? It was the most watched show in their 7-year run besides the wedding itself. That's a testament to God. And I'm still friends with them today, and I still preach Jesus to them every time I see them. He told me I'm the best marketer out there. He says, first you give me what I need, you give me what I want, and then you sell me Jesus. He said, that's a good job. He's a devout Jew. He's not a non-believer in that way. But I'm still seeing the day he comes to the altar. And we've worked with other celebrities and watched God use us to get them saved. And, you know, and for the natural mind and for the church, sometimes you have to remember your own call. And I have to remember that day that I laughed at my husband where he said Hollywood and pastors. And this was his reasoning behind him. This is what God slipped into his heart, because he said Hollywood leads the culture. Hollywood shows if marriage is in or out. And by the way, right now marriage is in. We want to get in there because they want happy endings. Even when I went on the Orange County Housewives, one of the things I said is I don't do drama. This is about restoring this couple's relationship. If you guys are going to trick me into coming on and showing a divorce here or publicizing the affair they had, because her husband had an affair, they assured me, no, for once we want to show a happy ending. And not only did we restore that marriage after he'd left to go be with the other woman, but after they came and God moved on their hearts, they got saved. Guess what their date night is nowadays? Saturday night church. Dinner and Saturday night church with their children. But the natural mind says, why would I want to go on a TV show that is absolute? I don't watch it. People send me clips of when hey, you were on last night. I'm going, really? You know, or people run up to me in church and say, I saw you on the Housewives. And I'm going, oh, not so loud. Because you see, in the natural mind, why would I go on stuff that's just, it's smut. I wouldn't suggest you watch it, not even to see me. It's sick. But you know, we were called to be a light in this world. And so I have to remember the vision that took place 25 years ago. And his thing with pastors and making sure that pastors had healthy relationships is because they lead the church. They're the shepherd. You won't get past the level of your own pastor. They're leading you. They should be able to stand here and say, and I know you have those kind of pastors because I know this woman. And I know her husband. They should be able to say to every married couple or every engaged couple or everyone that is having children, look, you guys, if you don't know the word, just follow us. Follow us. Do as we do. That's what Paul said. Do as I do. Our motto is do as I say, not as I do. We want leadership in the church today for those that don't have the word locked in, because we are going to get a rush of salvation. Now, I watched what my husband said about those two things. One more thing he said. He said, watch the wave. And he was saying this as he was dying. He said, honey, just before he died, for the last 6 weeks or so, he would say, honey, watch the wave. And I'd say, honey, because only the last month was he on a bit of drugs. He was not in pain for 4 years until that last month. And I said, honey, is that the drugs talking? Because I don't see any waves. Right? And he goes, you listen to me. There's no drugs happening here. He said, watch the wave. He said, the next wave of revival is going to be in relationships. Because they're going to be so attracted to the marriages we have that they're going to want what we have. Because of the love we have one for another, they're going to come in droves. He said, there's a wave coming. And it'll be the love in relationships. And so I plan to see that, and I plan to see that on this island. I think there's a wave here already to think. It's unusual. Hear what I'm saying about your island. It is unusual for a dozen churches to get together as one and put a conference together. You've done that. You've partnered as churches to see healthy marriages. To see, because that's the foundation. And you know what? I'm going to ask Denise. I want her, I don't know how many of you know her story, but I'm going to ask her because I know her story. And she was that woman. She may not have been married to 5 husbands, but because of one of the biggest rocks she got as a child, she was that woman until Jesus got a hold of her. And even then, see, the rocks, just because you get saved, don't go away. This is called working it out. This is called resolving. So I've just asked Denise if she'll share.
So the rock that I was carrying was that I was worthless. From the time I was 6 years old and I was molested, the devil had that as my identity for my whole life. And I would go from man to man looking for love in all the wrong places. And obviously it didn't work. And until I was 43 years old. And still was the same thing, worthless. And I walked into a church and received Jesus, which was awesome. It was the first time I felt some type of freedom. But the devil still had that worthless over me. And even though Jesus would work in my heart, and I knew that I had, if you can have a relationship with an invisible God and still feel worthless, something's not right. And I knew I needed more help. And, God was working on my heart one step at a time, taking that layer of the onion skin away, one layer at a time. And I ended up going to Bible studies, and I met an amazing man, and that you've all have seen him here, Mark Claydon. And, he never, ever saw that. He never saw me as worthless. As a matter of fact, one time I had cancer, and I was going to get some healing, and he said to me, how much do you think you're worth? And I was like, I don't know, maybe like $500. He said, I think you're worth millions. And I just broke into tears. And he says, you're going to go and you're going to go to that place and you're going to be healed and come back and you will make all that money to pay for whatever you need when you get back, because you'll be strong enough to do that. And I trusted him, and we went through our relationship. We had both been married before, so we were in a second relationship, and he had 2 amazing children. They were both adopted, that he had adopted, and I could never be a mother to them because of that worthless. And we had gone to a conference, and we had met Tina, and it was going to be our 10-year anniversary, and we knew we were both carrying stuff from our previous marriage, and I knew I was carrying a lot of stuff from just a previous of everything. And so we said, for our 10-year anniversary, let's give each other this gift, and we'll go do the 40 hours with Tina in California. So we did. And I'll tell you, it was the most freeing thing that ever happened. I mean, it bonded our marriage. Now, I can't tell you that we're perfect, right? Because we're not. We're still a work in progress. But our marriage is so tight now, and I don't have a lot of those rocks, yeah? So maybe I've got like 5 or 6 rocks gone. So it's a lighter load. And God's going to get those rocks. I know he is. But going through that 40 hours was like so amazing. And Mark and I just believed in it so much that we sowed a seed in that. And we knew one day that it would come to Maui. We knew it would come. And, I mean, because it was so successful for us, and, for if we could do that in the whole church, I mean, how amazing would that be? It's to me, it's just, because, the first thing we're supposed to do is love God, right? And then our marriage, our husbands or our spouses or our wives are always second. So if we have those 2 intact, everything underneath is going to be like perfect, yeah? So I want to just encourage you all, come to that conference. If you're single, it's going to help you in a relationship, maybe with your sister or your mother, or, relationships, it doesn't matter whether it's with God, with a significant other, but just come to that conference. The scripture, you are free and you are free indeed, right? Even though I would speak that over me every day the devil would back it up and say, worthless. Worthless. But after doing that, I'm not worthless. I am not worthless. I have the strength of Christ, and I've set that rock free. And I just want to invite all of you, just come. Even if your relationship's not in trouble, or you haven't had deep kimchi like me, come anyway, because there's still things that you'll be set free.
Thank you, Denise. Yeah. The testimonies are, what makes it all worth it. It makes it all worth it. And with my abandonment issue, I just want to share my testimony. I could have laid down when he died. I could have just said, done. God, for some reason, you took him too. That never entered. Now, did I grieve? Do I grieve? Do I miss him every single day? Like I would miss my right arm or more. I think I'd rather be without my right arm than be without him. But you see, our calling has nothing to do with who we do life with. Our purpose is, what did God create you to do? And what are those rocks robbing from you? So I never went back to the rejection rock or the abandonment rock or the victim rock. Never felt like a victim because my husband went home. Instead, I tell myself every day, in that cloud of witnesses, he's watching the vision being fulfilled. And God chose me to carry it on. What a privilege, what an honor that God would think that I am good enough, because not good enough was another rock, that I am good enough to carry this legacy until the day I die. What an honor. What an honor. What legacy are you carrying on, or will you leave when God calls you home. Because you get to live it out today. You get to be here today and say, God, reveal my rocks. Even if I am like that woman, full of shame, full of guilt, that I shouldn't even show my face anywhere. Whatever the devil is talking in your head, don't let him win. That's not the truth. Truth sets you free. And I hope today, as many of you as you can, don't let the $37, if you can't afford it, if you got to save $1 a day until we get there, do what you need to do. Invest in your relationships. Invest in your life. You will not regret it. All right? Thank you, Pastor.
Where you've been, what you've done, and what you have done to you. You